Hey guys, it's Daniel Reel from the Art of War podcast. Today I'm here with Liam Spronkin and we're here to talk about a chain deck that has been being played recently.
Yeah, so this is our latest iteration of Chane in Classic Constructed.
Yeah.
We've been running through a few armories, and this is where we're currently at.
Yeah.
There will definitely be some more development to go, but
Yeah.
so this is what we're currently running.
Yeah. So I piloted this tonight, borrowed it off Liam, and piloted it to a 4-0 victory in today's Armory. So we thought we'd just have a quick go over it. So the equipment, we'll start off with the weapon, Nebula Blade.
Yeah.
It's frankly insane, just the value that you can get from this one card.
The fact that it swings for 4 and gets you through your early game
Yeah.
with that pressure by hitting relevant numbers and also generating arcane damage.
Yeah.
It carries you through the weakest part of your game, which is your early game.
Yeah, and it works with a lot of your best cards too, because you can go plunder on attack or something, and then if you don't have an attack action, you can still come in with the Nebula Blade, which is because it creates a enchant, it's a really relevant attack.
Yeah.
So for the other equipment, we've got some classics. We've got Skullcap, because it blocks really well. We've got Grasp, because it blocks really well, and the creating a rune chant when you use 2 resources is like really valuable in your early game.
Yeah.
And it, if anyone's cheeky enough to not play any null rune, it can really help your end game as well.
Yeah.
Carrion Husk is pretty ridiculous because it lets you swing tempo on a dime.
Yeah, especially in the warrior matchup, it's very relevant.
Yeah.
When they're trying to tempo you out of the game, and your one equipment piece can shut down the tempo, take away all the counters, which shouldn't really be stacking up. Yeah, it gets you there.
We've got Fold as well, which we've been kind of questioning its place in the deck.
Yeah, so we're wondering when you actually slide it in over the block 2 on Skullcap, and to be honest, I'm not entirely sure.
It's a case of when we built the deck, we're like, it seems good, but
if you're playing versus slow control with not a lot of pressure, so Guardian is probably not one you'd bring in verse. It's a typical slow control deck, but you need to shut down those big crushes when they matter.
Yeah.
So you probably want the Skullcap there.
Yeah, this is definitely the budget alternative though, right? If you can't afford a Skullcap.
Like, don't get me wrong, it's good. And it's probably very good versus matchups like Dash Control, which you don't see much of at the moment, but they don't have relevant on hits for you to block. And they tend to be a slower setup deck. So having a equipment piece that does something relevant in the matchup seems strong.
Yep. Next we've got the secret 3rd generic legendary, Snapdragon Scalers. This card's just busted. It goes in so many decks. If you're focused around playing low-cost cards and you're playing E-Strikes in your deck, then the Snapdragon Scalers is a massive contender.
Yeah.
Just the plays that this lets you pull off are nuts. Just ups your damage by a very large margin.
And it hits all but 1 attack action in the deck, which is Soul Reaping.
At the moment we've got 3 null rune.
Yeah.
So what are you keeping in against Wizard?
I'm keeping in
the Snapdragon Scalers.
Yes.
Just because they keep upping your damage.
Yeah.
Cool. And in the mirror, which null rune were you planning on playing?
Planning on playing the Hood.
Yeah, I was the same. So
just the more reliable block off Grasp is better than the sometimes reliable Grasp off Skullcap.
Yep.
And you do need Hood to stop some of the very strong, if you've dealt arcane damage triggers, such as Meet and Greet. I think not playing null rune is possibly an option, but it's quite scary. If your opponent draws the right lines, if they draw like a Seeds into a Consuming Volition,
Meet and Greet and such.
Meet and Greet, you sit way behind just by not having that equipment piece.
Yeah, I agree. I played today a chain that went for Skullcap over Norn Hood because he forgot. But it did cause trouble for him not being able to block the arcane damage.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll get on to the actual.
One equipment piece we probably missed in our testing, which seems pretty good in certain matchups, is the Iron Weave. For matchups where you
like the blocking isn't so valuable.
Blocking isn't as valuable, and you expect the game to be a bit more about how much damage you can actually put out on one turn, such as Guardian. The blocking is still strong in that matchup, but they can defend you so well and gain a lot of life that being able to put out more damage seems very relevant.
So just to clarify a bit further, in our testing with Bravo, we worked out that Bravo can't actually deal damage to the Chane player and win by playing a typical game where you both attack and defend. Instead, the Bravo puts out like a pretend I'm playing for the first couple turns, so that the Chane player is encouraged to block some of their cards, and then the Bravo around turn 2, turn 3, once there are 3 Soul Shackles, just goes full defense mode and just 4-card blocks everything. They have the life gain, so their best plays in the early game are like their Red Blessings and such, and you just block out and try and deck the Chane player. So the defense on Carrion Husks isn't really that valuable.
Yeah. And because they can block out, you take like 8 or 9 damage off it. And something I want to try is Dimensional Crossroads, specifically for that matchup.
Just because it has a high damage ceiling.
Yeah. Like if you get 2 out, it's eating 2 cards from their turn every turn, or they're taking 1 every turn. And when you're playing the Carrion Husk, you can't do that because you'll be taking 1 off your blood debt. So playing the Iron Weave seems strong there.
And either Iron Weave being able to give you 2 resource hits the breakpoint for an extra swing with your blade, or lets you play an extra howl on a big turn. So it's more valuable than Tunic. We think in the matchup. All right, onto the actual main deck. So we'll start with the reds. So the deck is aggro deck, so you're looking to race most decks and just play very aggressively. So we've got a lot of cards that you'd see in Ninja as well. But we'll start off with the generic Shadow Puppetry, which is...
Card's frankly insane.
Giving
any attack go again, doesn't even have to be Shadow. So one of the best plays you can do is Shadow Puppetry into E-Strike. For either 8 or 6 and draw a card. It's like, and the on hit's good. It forces them to block. So when you're hitting for 6, drawing a card, giving go again, like you just eat 2 cards straight away.
It's
and
amazing,
you keep going.
Right? If you want to hear more about Shadow Puppetry, just going to plug the podcast really quick. This was our last card of the week, so we talked about this card last episode. And then we've got a staple from Welcome to Wraith, 3 Razor Reflex. Once again, it just lets you push more damage, lets you get...
Another source of go again in the deck, which it sometimes lacks.
And there are valid on hits in the deck, like you get your Meet and Greets hitting, and you can get your Blade hitting as well for the extra 1 damage on the next enchant.
My personal favourite, Consuming Volition, is build your own pummel with Razor.
7 go again, your opponent discards a card is brutal. Now we've got one of the build around cards, which is Riftbind. So... Riftbind is not very good when it's in your hand, but when it's in your banish zone, it gains, when you play it, it gets plus X attack, where X is the number of non-attack action cards you play this turn. And we'll see that there's a lot of them in the deck. So
one thing to note with Riftbind is the reds especially, you should be aggressively pitching them early game. Even if it makes your early game turns subpar, the fact that you can have this card dealing upwards of 8 damage late game just because you're pitching it early is very, very strong.
This is your finishing combo with Howl from Beyond. Those 2 cards work really
If you can ever
together.
double red Riftbind late game, you probably win on the spot.
Now we've got the card that makes me question life in general. Soul Reaping. What is this card?
What doesn't it do?
The card is insane, right?
I mean, sometimes it doesn't have go again. That's what it doesn't do.
I forgot about it. I actually gave it go again in my last game, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Let's go again.
It's already good enough without the last line of text.
It's a 6 power card for free. Better than free. It generates you 1 or 2 resource when you play it. The only downside is the only card you can't Razor in the deck. But it doesn't have a relevant on hit. So it doesn't come up much.
I mean, a lot of the times you just end up banishing it off the top and it does nothing. But just the power level, when you get this turn, you can combo it with Art of War and stuff. And with Shadow Puppetry, just make it obscene. So really
I've definitely played a Plunder Run into a Soul Reaping for 9, generate 2 resource, banishing 2 cards that you can play later. It's like, doesn't feel very fair.
Next we have another banish card, Unhallowed Rites. So this one is important because it's a on-curve card, so it's pretty efficient for its cost. And it gives you a non-attack action card, Blood Debt, on the bottom of your deck,
which is Seeds, pretty much.
Seeds or Howl.
Howl, because I tend to put Seeds because I'm not sure if I'll make it to that resource late game. But I could see Howl if you're playing versus a blockout deck like Bravo. Howl's probably very, very strong to put back.
Yeah, this is one of the most powerful cards versus Bravo because it increases your deck size by 1, and you can get a Howl back, and I'm almost to the point where I think we want to run the blue ones as well.
Yeah, just thinking about that as well.
Just so that we can get higher card density.
Yeah.
Just give you a few more hits
a few more
into
blood
Bravo.
hits as well. It's pretty strong.
Yep.
So now we're onto an... Oh, no, we're not quite onto a non-blood deck stuff.
Yeah. Bounding Demigod, because a lot of the time it's Scar for a Scar that blocks 3, right?
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, Scar for a Scar that blocks 3 is not a very fair card for your opponent to be looking at.
Yep. And then we've got Howl from Beyond. So this card is nuts when combined with Riftbind because it's 2 for +4 that you can play from your Banish Zone, and you know it's a lot of the time it's just an extra card, and you play a lot of blues
+4
in
on
the
your
deck.
Bounding Demigons as well, and
Yeah.
also lets you play them. So
Yeah.
because you're running a lot of blues and your strongest cards are 1 cost like Riftbind or Unhallowed Rites,
Yeah.
you can play these 2 cards, for example, off a single blue,
Yeah.
which is a very strong interaction.
And combo as well, Soul Reaping too.
Combos very well with Soul Reaping, being able to generate a resource from it.
Yeah, which makes it cheaper and easier to play.
Yeah.
We've got arguably one of the best cards in the deck. Seeds.
Red Seeds of Agony. Yeah.
This is what makes Chane's World go round. This is the card that
It taxes your opponent's hand every turn. They always have to wonder if there's a meet and greet coming after it. Do they have to pitch for it? Is it worth wasting a card to block 1 damage?
Yeah.
And how punished can they get? They can get very punished from meet and greet.
Which we'll talk about in a sec.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is really the the grease that makes the engine run.
Yeah.
You want to try and pitch them aggressively early because in the
Covering
late game,
4 or 5 with Riftbind.
yeah,
Activating your Bounding Demigons. They're all things you need to be thinking about in that early game to get there on the deck.
if you can pitch like 2 seeds together so that they're stacked on the bottom and you'll banish them later, is like really powerful. Just because it enables your Riftbinds to do a lot more work. We've got the
non-blood dead attacks.
these are the watch my arcane cards.
Yeah. So even showing a card by showing one of these 2 by blocking with it or by pitching it, which isn't as great because it's not good late game, because you want to be banishing blood deck cards instead. But showing one of these cards to your opponent makes every Seeds of Agony you play much scarier because they have to be wondering if there's one of these relevant effects coming. With this being one of the strongest on hits in the game, on a 1 cost card,
Absolutely.
in my opinion.
This is more powerful than draw a card, I think. Just
making your opponent discard is very, very strong.
It'll, like, a lot of the time this card will just ruin your opponent's combat math. They'll be like, I'm okay taking a weapon swing or something to play the strong hand, but you come in with the Volition and it just ruins the plan.
I think the first time I played this deck, this Daniel in Armory, I got to Consuming Volition and Razor Reflex it.
Yeah.
And it wins the game on the spot because you push 3 damage, you probably get an equipment block, and then your opponent loses another card from hand, and you give your Consuming go again.
Just like a massive tempo swing.
Yeah.
You have one of the last attack in the deck, Enlightened Strike.
Very versatile.
Yeah.
All 3 modes are very strong in the deck.
Yeah. I've done draw a card a few times with go again, like from either Razor or Snapdragons, just so I can push damage.
Arbitrary as well, that's it.
Yeah. As you can see, we kind of have like the ninja cards here.
Yeah.
And these are basically like, this is almost a league tap.
Yeah, that's the league tap equivalent, right?
Yeah. And then we have the last red non-attack action, Plunder Run. And my god, every deck that this card is played in, it's
Obscenely strong.
incredibly powerful. Just +3. It's not that hard to set up either.
Yeah. It'll very rarely not draw you a card.
Yeah, just because you can go so wide, and almost all your cards hit breakpoints.
Yeah.
And you can get some obscene breakpoints with Riftbind. Like you can get it up to 7.
Like this is 4, 4, 4, 4, 4,
7.
7, and then another breakpoint hit by the +3.
Yeah.
So it's you have a defense reaction as well, or you miss 2.
Exactly right. So as you see with these reds, got like a really aggressive shell that we're playing around.
Yeah.
We'll get onto the yellows. Just grab these all up. All right.
Cool.
So the yellows.
No, there's not many yellows in the deck.
Yeah. We'll just pull them out
Yeah.
because some of them are already covered. This is a big one.
One of the more powerful cards in the deck.
This card is actually busted. Like, it really
It says draw 3 and give your attacks plus
plus
1 until
Yep.
the end of turn.
So
It's often worth, like, well, it's hard to say how much value
it's
the
often
drawing...
plus 4 damage, right?
Yeah,
At
it's
least,
plus
get
4
minimum.
damage straight up from that mode, and then drawing 3 is...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Okay, so it's draw 2, but banishing a card is actively good for you with Riftbind and Demigod, because
Yeah.
it gives them their bonus
Yes,
effects.
so Riftbind and Demigod are quite weak when they're played from your hand.
Mhm.
So just this is a vehicle for you to put them in your banish zone, and we play with them with their bonus effects for increased damage. So, you know, this card is actually just busted every time you draw it. It's pretty insane, unless you don't have attack actions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, staple of the deck. There's your top. If you want to play Chane, you're on a budget. This is the expensive cards that are your top priority to
This is the
obtain.
first one to look for, yeah.
Yeah, because it pushes the power level
Yeah.
really far.
Probably even over your couple of your legendaries.
Yeah, I would get Art of Wars, then E-Strikes, and then worry about Carrion Husk.
And just play your even fold and your
Yeah,
Aether Iron Weave until then.
yeah,
And it's not going to be a bad deck.
This
Absolutely
deck,
not.
like, there are lots of good, there are lots of really good Chane common cards that are not played in this deck that you can substitute out for some of the more expensive
Mhm,
cards.
Absolutely.
So if you're on a budget, you can play those cards. You know, like Rifted Torment and Rip Through Reality are some really powerful ones.
Yeah.
Might just want to, if you do that, you might just want to up your blue content though.
Yeah. So these are our blues. So we're on 3 blue Plunder Run, which was the edition for today that we were testing.
Yep.
And how'd it feel, Dan?
It felt great. So, like, honestly, like, sometimes it's a blue and you just pitch it away and that's okay. But every now and then you get to Arsenal one and it's just like, well, overperforms what a blue should do.
Yeah.
Just +1 means you hit some better breakpoints. And the draw a card, just because you go so wide, it means you're going to draw. It means it replaces itself. A lot of the time, you don't even need to Arsenal it. You can just play it.
Yeah.
And
that's one of the few decks I think that comes up in.
yeah.
The fact that this is a reasonable card for you to be playing from hand means it's probably should be in the deck, just because
Yeah.
it's so powerful.
Yeah, well, because there's so much synergy with non-attack actions. Just playing a dud non-attack action that replaces itself is pretty decent. Because, you know, it triggers your ref binds, triggers your weapon.
Lets you
on
play
and on.
Bounding Demigons.
Yeah, exactly right. And pushes into 5, right?
Yeah.
So then we've got blue ref bind. These can often come in for 4, which is a good breakpoint,
Yep.
which is impressive for a blue that costs 1.
Yes. And it blocks 3.
Mm-hmm. We've got another 3 of Seeds of Agony. You just play the full 9 because that card's ridiculous.
Yep.
We have blue blue shadow puppetry, basically.
Definitely worse than Shadow Puppetry. Also
But-
blocks 2.
Yeah.
I find myself quite often not playing it.
I pitch it a
Because-
lot as well.
Yeah. Don't often need the go again, I find.
Mm.
Like normally you're capping out at 2 or another
Yeah.
or 3 with another go again effect in
Yeah.
your deck.
But you still...
Sometimes you need to play it
Yeah.
to get everything done. But
Yeah, still it's a 0 cost non-attack action that turns on a Demigod and gives it go
Mhm.
again. With Demigod has a breakpoint of 4, so it hits that and also has an on-hit now.
Mhm.
So it just pushes threats, basically, right?
Yeah,
Get the blue
utility views
Demigod.
tend to be very strong.
This is the attack I least like in the deck, and the attack that feels like it punishes you the most for playing it,
Mhm.
because there are turns when you're going to banish this, and you're just going to let it sit there for 2 or
Yeah.
3 turns.
And it also only
Uh,
takes for 2,
Yeah,
which is
from the
not great.
it's not the best, but it's a blue that blocks 3, and sometimes being able to play it from the banish zone is relevant.
Mm.
You know, especially if you've got plunder runs and
And it was mainly there
Demons.
to up the attack count in the deck
yeah,
that you can play from Banish Zone.
yeah,
Because you don't want to be sitting there with no pressure and only non-attacks. Like,
Yep.
Seeds with no target is not a good card.
yeah,
So this is there to trigger that sort of effect.
yeah, exactly. Next we have one of the most powerful cards in the deck. And this being a Monarch Majestic is a little cheaper than some of the other ones, so this is a high recommend to pick up.
This feels a lot like Art of War a lot of the time to me.
It does, because it's 2 with Go Again, which is not doesn't seem that valuable, but a lot of the time it's easy to buff.
Yep.
And it also turns on your Rift Binds.
Yeah, so turning on Riftbind is the strongest effect it has. The fact that you can attack with it with Go Again
Yeah.
and banish a Riftbind
And then get the buff
to
on
give
your Rift
the
Bind.
Riftbind buff
Mm.
is... It feels a lot like Art of War banishing a Riftbind
Yeah.
to turn it on.
And
It's like, yeah.
It's the same with Demigorgon too. Demigorgon hand is a really inefficient card that you want to block with or pitch with. Like, but this turns your Demigorgon into a really efficient card.
Yep.
So it's a really important card to have. Just we have kind of an interesting inclusion, a new
Makes it
Viscerai
nice.
card.
Yeah.
So what's the plan for this card?
The thing for this card is it's a blue block 3 most of the time.
Yeah.
I very rarely play it, and the only times I'm actively looking to play it are if I'm holding a Consuming Volition or Meet and Greet.
Yeah, because it forces those cards through.
That still requires you to have probably another blue to play this, so it doesn't feel the best to play, but it's there because at worst it's a blue that blocks 3.
Yep. Lastly, we have Eclipse, which is the legendary. This is probably the last expensive card you pick up for the deck, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't find myself playing it often.
Yeah, it's a sometimes card, right?
Yeah.
It's really good when you can play it, but a lot of the time it's a blue that pitches, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, well, sometimes it just gets banished and sits there.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't deal you damage, so it's not the worst thing in the world. But it doesn't block, which is quite relevant sometimes.
the card that is the matchups where this is important are the matchups where you're going long and you're building up your combo, taking some bleed debt, so that you can have some inevitability in the end game and get past a wall.
Yeah.
Then we have some sideboard cards. So these cards are only played in some matchups. So first we have Gorgonian Tome.
This is definitely the most played of the sideboard cards. I like it in a lot of matchups. I would probably only take it out versus the really aggressive decks.
So why is this card good? Just because it doesn't look like it does very much.
Yep, so it doesn't block and it doesn't pitch, but it replaces itself when you play it. It buffs Riftbind, it lets you play Bounding Demigorgon, and then it contributes to some of your more busted turns with almost storming out multiple cards and playing a big Riftbind at the end.
Yep. And again, this is one of the lower important expensive cards.
And it should get much cheaper with Crucible Unlimited.
With Crucible Unlimited, yeah. But this card's going to be interesting in the Chane Mirror.
Yeah.
Both people are
the
playing
second
it.
person to play it is going to be...
reap the benefits, right? Because they get to draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
Which is,
it's not one I'd sit on for that reason,
yeah.
just because it doesn't block. And
So
if you have no other Arsenal option, I could see that being strong.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get a better one, you'd swap it.
Yeah, exactly, right? Oh, and
it's also likely that your opponent's just going to banish theirs.
yeah, that too. Yep. All right, then we've got Time Snaps, which fill a very select purpose in the deck.
Yeah, so you don't lose on the spot to Arclight Sentinel.
Yep. So Arclight Sentinel is a Prism card that is played typically after you banish. So you banish a bunch of good cards. They're like, right, I'm going to stop you. Your Time Snap potion stops that from happening because you can use one attack. You can use one action point to break that, and then you still have an action point left the rest of your turn.
Yeah.
And it's just important for that matchup for that one reason, really.
Yeah. Sometimes if you don't have it, you can find yourself taking 5 or 6 blood debt just from an Arclight Sentinel.
Yeah.
And that can potentially be game losing.
Yeah.
I haven't played much of the Prism matchup personally.
I haven't played it yet either, really.
But just having 2 there to set up early game seems fairly important to me.
Yeah, I mean, even if that doesn't really happen, the Time Snap is probably going to get you there anyway. So, yep. Next, we have the card closest to the cutting block. So, this card is having a tricky time justifying its own inclusion in the deck because
I have a feeling we might be playing it wrong.
It's possible. I didn't play it. I actually sided it out in every single one of my matches today just because I wanted cards that blocked and I didn't feel like this effect was going to be that impactful.
I feel like where we're overlooking it is where you want to get the Ursa token.
It's possible, yeah.
It's a card that doesn't require an action point to play with blood debt, so you can banish it late game to get that 6th card to
that is true.
Play Eclipse and get your Ursa token. So where that matters, it might end up being quite stronger than we expect.
Yep.
But for now, it feels like one of the weaker effects in your deck.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the cards in this deck are just incredibly powerful, so if a card has more niche use, it kind of stands out as not being as strong.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we have the tech.
Yeah.
So this is
what we're trying for the mirror.
Yeah.
Because the mirror seems to be the most important matchup in the meta at the moment, with Chane being so obviously powerful.
Yeah.
So you want to get an edge on your opponent where you can. And Chains of Eminence is the card that I wanted to try.
To just quickly explain what it does, because it's a Not
It's
very
not a
common
commonly
card.
seen card. Yeah, so it has Go Again, and it's a 0-cost non-attack action. When it enters the arena, you name a card, and the name card can't be pitched, played, or used to defend or chains of eminences in the arena. And at the beginning of your action phase, you destroy it. So it lasts a turn, and it locks an opponent out from doing anything
With the named card.
with the name card.
So what are we naming?
So we're probably naming Seeds of Agony.
Yep. Because this is a do everything card,
Yep.
right?
It's a pitch card. It's
play
probably
from-
not a block card, but that's not what you're aiming to hit. And you're aiming to leave it in the banish zone if they do banish some off shackles.
Yeah. So it can actually deal damage to people.
So it can kill your opponent, and it can break their hands if they are relying on a blue Seeds of Agony.
That's the idea, right? Is that Seeds are so much, it's played to turn on other cards, it's pitched, it triggers arcane damage for the arcane damage relevant effects, and you can play it from your banish zone.
Yep.
So you're just hoping to brick your opponent with it.
So I'd always check my opponent's graveyard when I play
seeds,
this card. You want to count the number of seeds versus the number of Riftbinds, because Riftbind's the other very strong card to name. That's what most chain decks seem to be playing towards at the moment.
Yep.
Is those big Riftbind turns.
Yep.
And it's also a blue and a red that people run, and sometimes a yellow. I probably think you should be on some number of yellows.
Yep.
So it's another card that stops your opponent playing with all their hand.
Yep, and as always, watch what your opponent pitches. If they reveal anything off the top of their deck, say with a Ravenous Rabble or something, if that ever ends up being played in chain decks, and you can name whatever they will have drawn off that. So just keep an eye out when you have the Chains of Eminence for any valuable targets that you can see.
The other matchup
If
I'd
your
like to
opponent
try
drops
in,
some cards in front of you, chains them right away.
the other matchup I think it could be good in is Warrior. I'm not sure how much help that matchup needs, but naming Warrior's Valor seems very strong.
Yeah.
That's the scariest card to be played against you as Chain, because the one that lets them go tall and attack twice.
Yeah.
Off like one attack reaction or something, like coming in for 6.
It's just a
threatening to go
staple
again.
warrior card that is 9 of in most decks. So,
And so being able to name that card that's a pitch card, a block card, and the scariest card to be played versus you seems quite strong.
it's also probably playable against Bolton as well, actually.
And now we're just coming up with things on the spot.
Yeah.
Just naming Lumina so you don't die.
Yeah. Just if you think they're close to their Lumina combo turn, you just play the chains and name it.
Yep.
So there's a lot of applications for this card and requires a bit of testing because there are going to be times when you
One
draw
of
it
the
and it's
niche
just not
use you
good.
can use is you can name equipment.
Yeah, that too.
So if your opponent's on
It's actually
15 or so life in
it's
the Chain
actually
Mirror,
very relevant in Chain Mirror because
you can name the Carrion Husk, and they can't use it.
And then if you put them below 13, they destroy it. So that is actually hugely relevant.
It effectively deals 6 damage in that case.
Yeah. Well, you heard it here first. That's the deck. Any last thoughts on it? Just before we wrap
I
up?
think one important thing to be thinking about in this deck is what you're arsenaling.
Yeah.
So
So
there's a lot of cards
right?
that aren't very good in Arsenal, such as Riftbinds.
These are terrible.
They don't do
You
much.
just keep them in your hand.
I think so. So some of the better cards to be arsenaling are Shadow Versa is strong. The best is obviously Plunder Run because it has an additional effect from Arsenal.
So these are your Arsenal targets, so you want to slam into Arsenal if you see them.
Yeah.
And they're not obscene. Seeds of Agony is okay to Arsenal.
Yeah.
It's not ideal, but there are better or worse ones.
So part of the reason I put in the blue Plunder Runs was because the Arsenal slot is so important in the matchup or with the deck. Finding additional cards that make your Arsenal stronger was very important to me. So I put the extra copies of Plunder Run as a good target for that.
And then this one.
Yeah.
He's in the middle. So these are the most powerful
So the cards
cards
I'd rate
in the
the
deck to
highest
Arsenal.
are the non-attack actions,
Yep.
the 6 Plunder Runs, the Art of Wars, and the Razor Reflexes.
Yep.
The impact they have coming out of the Arsenal is unmatched by most things.
Yep. I think Soul Reaping is right up there as well.
Yep.
And then these three are the lesser but still very strong. With
Cards that you're happy to Arsenal, but
3 E-Strikes.
don't go out of your way to do it.
Yeah. E-Strikes, Meet and Greets, and Consuming Volitions.
Yep.
These are the weakest of the strong Arsenal cards here, but you're happy arsenaling and starting your turn with any of these in your arsenal just because they are really powerful cards that push through big turns.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
that everything
and
today?
something these especially combo with the other Arsenal cards.
Yeah,
like absolutely insane if you can combo
yeah.
them together.
These cards all work very well together.
Yep.
Is one of the reasons. Like your Arsenal cards, you want to combo with your other cards. That's why they're powerful.
Yeah.
Is they're not just a solo card that's powerful by itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, that's our Chane deck.
I'm
Make
sure it'll
to
change by the time we actually
yeah,
play it in a
we'll
proper
probably
tournament.
go home and change bits of it.
Yep.
But
Such as the inverts, we'll test something
Yeah.
out in that spot.
But if you're looking to play Chane, this is definitely a great starting point. You can definitely have fantastic success at Armories with this build.
Yeah.
Really powerful against a lot of decks and fun to play as well.
Yeah.
So, thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. That'll make Greg happy.
Yeah, and check out the Art of War podcast if you want to hear more of
yeah.
Daniel's thoughts on cards.
Exactly. Or if you like my voice. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. See you later.
Thanks.